You are. If someone can make you angry, they can control you, and no serious person hands over control of their inner world so cheaply. Anger feels justified. It feels powerful. You are. It feels like strength rising in your chest. But most of the time, it's not strength, it's surrender. It is the moment you allow someone else's words, behavior, you are, or ignorance to reach inside you and rearrange your internal order. And the uncomfortable truth is this: the more easily you are angered, you are, the less responsibility you are taking for your own life. Calm is not passive. Calm is disciplined. Calm is earned. You are. To never be angry or bothered by anyone is not about becoming numb or indifferent. It is about becoming so grounded, so ordered internally, you are. That chaos has nothing to grab onto. Most people live reactively. Someone disrespects them and they explode. Someone criticizes them and they collapse. You are. Someone ignores them and they obsess. This is not awareness. This is slavery. When your emotional state depends on external behavior, you are living at the mercy of forces you cannot control, and life is brutal to those who refuse to develop inner structure. The solution is not to silence the world, you are, but to strengthen yourself. The goal is not to avoid difficult people, but to become someone difficult situations cannot destabilize. You are. Anger often disguises itself as moral superiority. We tell ourselves we are angry because we are right, but being right does not require being enraged. In fact, you are. Anger usually appears when we feel powerless, unheard, or unprepared. It is the mind's last defense against perceived chaos. If you want anger to disappear, you are. You must replace it with competence, clarity, and responsibility. Ask yourself this: what am I avoiding taking responsibility for right now? You are. Because anger thrives where responsibility is delayed. To never be bothered by anyone, you must clearly define what is worth your attention. You are. Attention is your most valuable resource. Wherever it goes, your life follows. If you give it to provocation, insult, or petty behavior, your life will shrink to match the size of those things. Serious people do not waste emotional energy on nonsense. They conserve it for meaning, for purpose. You are. For the difficult work of becoming better than they were yesterday. There is a quiet power in restraint. When someone tries to provoke you and fails, you are. They reveal their weakness, not yours. When you remain calm, you communicate something without words. I am not fragile. Emotional control is not suppression. You are. It is alignment. Your emotions are no longer leading, you are. And leadership of the self is the highest form of leadership there is. You must also understand this, you are. People will always disappoint you. They will misunderstand you. They will act selfishly. Expecting otherwise is childish. When expectations are unrealistic, our anger is inevitable. But when expectations are grounded in reality, irritation fades. You stop asking flawed people to behave perfectly, you are. And you stop being shocked when they don't. Maturity is accepting human imperfection without letting it poison your inner state. Order your life, you are. Clean up what you can control: your habits, your words, your reactions. When your internal world is structured, external chaos loses its grip. You are. The person who is moving forward with purpose has little time to be offended. Meaning crowds out resentment. Direction dissolves irritation. You are. When you know where you are going, distractions become irrelevant. So if you want to never be angry or bothered by anyone, stop outsourcing your emotional stability. You are. Build strength instead of excuses. Choose responsibility over reaction. Choose clarity over chaos. And remember this: you are. The calmest person in the room is often the most dangerous, not because they lack emotion, but because they have mastered it. You are. Anger is a signal of unexamined responsibility. Anger is not merely an emotional response. It is a signal, a warning light blinking in your consciousness. You are. Telling you that there is something in your life you are refusing to face. When you feel anger rising, it is rarely just about the other person. You are. It is almost always about you, about the responsibility you have avoided, the standards you have neglected, or the truths you have ignored. You are. If someone's words provoke you, if someone's behavior triggers resentment, it is not their fault alone. It is yours in part. You are. Because you have allowed your internal boundaries to erode, your clarity to waver, or your commitment to falter. Anger is never a badge of honor. You are. It is a sign that you have handed away your authority over yourself and given it to circumstances, to other people, or to forces you cannot control. You are. Most people interpret anger as a sign of moral superiority, as if being angry proves they are right and others are wrong. But this is a misunderstanding. You are. Anger masquerades as righteousness because it is loud and immediate, but it is almost always a shadow of avoidance. You are angry because you feel powerless. You are. Because you have deferred the difficult work of taking responsibility, because you have allowed small injustices to accumulate until they erupt uncontrollably. You are. It is your failure to act responsibly that fuels the fire. And the moment you recognize this, the nature of anger changes. It becomes a tool, not a trap. You are a guidepost showing you where you need to reclaim authority, where you need to take action, where you must confront your own negligence. Consider this. You are. If you never examined your responsibilities, if you never held yourself accountable, the world would constantly provoke you. Every criticism, every slight, you are. Every inconvenience would elicit a storm of fury. Life would feel like a battlefield where enemies lurk in every corner. But the moment you take responsibility, you are. The triggers lose their power. The people who once made you boil with rage suddenly become irrelevant because your emotional state is no longer dependent on them. You are. The anger disappears not because the world has changed, but because you have. You have strengthened the internal structures that govern your life. You are. You have acknowledged the areas where you were weak, unprepared, or negligent, and you have taken steps to fix them. Anger is a teacher, but it is a harsh one. You are. It will not hand you lessons on a silver platter. It forces you to confront yourself, to examine where you have failed. You are. And to face uncomfortable truths about your own inadequacy. When you stop blaming others for your emotional state, when you stop projecting your frustrations outward, you are. You begin to see a pattern. Anger always points back to something within you that needs attention. Maybe it is your lack of preparation. You are. Maybe it is your failure to communicate clearly. Maybe it is your refusal to set boundaries or uphold standards. Whatever it is, the solution is always the same. You are. Take responsibility, act decisively, and restore order within yourself. People often confuse anger with strength, but this is a dangerous misconception. You are. Strength is not displayed in outbursts or in the ability to intimidate. Strength is displayed in control, in calm, in the capacity to respond rather than react. You are. Anger is weakness pretending to be power. It is a chaotic force, a signal that your internal world has been disrupted. You are. The truly powerful person understands this and uses anger as a diagnostic tool, not as a weapon. They ask themselves, why did I react this way? You are. What responsibility am I avoiding? Where is my order broken? In doing so, they convert chaos into opportunity. You are. They take the energy that would have fueled destructive rage and redirect it toward meaningful action. You are. Another critical truth is that anger always stems from an unmet standard. We get angry when the world violates what we believe should be. You are. But this expectation often exists only in our imagination, and when reality fails to conform, anger erupts. The antidote is not suppression, but alignment. You are. Examine your expectations. Are they realistic? Are they your responsibility to enforce? If the answer is yes, then take action. If the answer is no, you are. Then release the attachment. Do not allow your energy to be hijacked by illusions of control over things beyond your reach. Your responsibility is to govern yourself. You are. To maintain clarity and to pursue your own order, not to try to control the world. Anger also thrives in procrastination, unfinished business, unresolved conflicts. You are. And neglected responsibilities accumulate silently like dust in the corners of your mind until a small irritant sparks a storm. You are. By addressing your responsibilities promptly, by confronting difficulties before they grow, by speaking the truth when it matters, you prevent anger from taking root. You are. Responsibility is like a shield. The more you actively manage your life, the less likely you are to be disturbed by external provocations. You are. The calm that comes from fulfilling your obligations is not passive. It is the product of deliberate action, conscious effort, and moral clarity. Ultimately, you are. Anger is not an inevitability. It is a signal, a guide, and an opportunity. It points toward the gaps in your life where responsibility has been shirked. You are. Where standards have been compromised and where clarity has been lost. When you learn to interpret anger in this way, it loses its power over you. You are. You stop reacting automatically. You stop giving your authority away. You stop surrendering your inner peace to circumstances beyond your control. You are. You become the master of your emotional world. And in doing so, you discover something remarkable. The absence of anger is not emptiness. It is strength. It is clarity. You are. It is freedom. It is the evidence of a life lived responsibly, deliberately, and fully. Emotional discipline is a form of strength. True strength is rarely loud. You are explosive or immediate. It does not announce itself through anger, frustration, or uncontrolled reaction. You are. The strongest individuals are not those who lash out at injustice or stomp their feet at provocation. The strongest are those who have mastered themselves. You are. Who govern their emotions with clarity, precision, and unwavering attention. Emotional discipline is not about repression or pretending that feelings do not exist. You are. It is about understanding that feelings are instruments, tools to be wielded consciously rather than wild horses running amok. You are. To possess emotional discipline is to hold power over the one arena in life that is entirely yours, your internal world. You are. Consider the chaotic lives of those who cannot control their emotions. A harsh word, a minor slight, a starts, lunatic spend it and don't heading in 800 words. You are. STRing start lining emotional discipline is a form of strength. True strength is not measured by the volume of your voice, the speed of your reactions. You are, or the intensity of your anger. Real power is subtle, precise, and unyielding in its control. It is the calm in the storm. You are. The unwavering presence in the midst of chaos, the capacity to act deliberately rather than react impulsively. You are. Emotional discipline is not about suppressing feelings or pretending they do not exist. It is about understanding them, mastering them. You are. And directing them toward constructive outcomes. Every uncontrolled emotion is a leak of energy, a surrender of control, a weakening of your position in the world. You are. To be emotionally disciplined is to take that energy back, to reclaim your authority over yourself. You are. And to establish an inner fortress that cannot be breached by others' provocations. Many people misunderstand strength. They believe it is shown through aggression, you are, anger, or the ability to dominate others. But this is superficial. Anyone can yell. Anyone can lash out. You are. Anyone can succumb to irritation when circumstances are inconvenient or when people act foolishly. You are. The truly strong do not need to prove themselves in such ways because they have something far more valuable: self-command. You are. Emotional discipline allows you to assess situations rationally, respond strategically, and maintain your integrity even when others attempt to destabilize you. You are. Strength without discipline is brittle. It collapses at the first sign of pressure. Discipline turns raw strength into resilience. You are, and resilience is the hallmark of those who endure, achieve, and lead. Emotional discipline is rooted in awareness. To master your emotions, you must first recognize them. Anger, frustration, anxiety, jealousy, or fear are signals, not enemies. They tell you what matters to you, where your boundaries are, and what is unresolved in your life. The difference between a disciplined person and one who is enslaved by emotion is this: The disciplined individual observes these feelings without surrendering to them. They ask, why am I feeling this? What does this signal about my priorities, my responsibilities, or my neglected obligations? By transforming raw emotion into conscious insight, they convert potential weakness into deliberate action. Control over emotion also strengthens relationships and influence. When you respond calmly under pressure, when you maintain composure when others are agitated, you inspire trust, respect, and admiration. People naturally gravitate toward those who are steady, reliable, and unwavering. Emotional discipline prevents you from being manipulated by the impulses and whims of others. Those who react violently or defensively are predictable. Those who respond with composure are unpredictable, and in life, unpredictability rooted in mastery is power. By choosing your responses rather than allowing instinctive reactions to dictate your behavior, you establish a presence that commands attention and deference. Moreover, emotional discipline is essential for navigating adversity. Life is inevitably filled with challenges, obstacles, and setbacks. In moments of difficulty, uncontrolled emotion magnifies problems, clouds judgment, and drains energy. Anger can lead to conflict, anxiety to paralysis, resentment to bitterness. But when you cultivate emotional discipline, these same situations become opportunities. You assess clearly, act decisively. And maintain focus on what can be controlled. The disciplined mind does not waste energy on complaint or frustration. It channels effort into solutions, growth, and forward momentum. Strength is not the absence of difficulty. It is the ability to act with integrity and clarity in spite of it. Discipline in emotion also fosters long-term achievement. Success rarely comes from sporadic bursts of passion or emotional reaction. It comes from sustained effort, careful planning, and consistent action. Unchecked emotions disrupt consistency. They lead to distractions, impulsive decisions, and wasted energy. By mastering your emotional state, you ensure that your focus remains on meaningful goals rather than fleeting irritations. You become capable of enduring delays, setbacks, and criticism without losing your composure. You build resilience that compounds over time. Producing results that those who are emotionally reactive cannot achieve. Furthermore, emotional discipline is closely tied to self-respect and dignity. When you allow yourself to be swayed by petty provocations or insults, you communicate weakness, sometimes to yourself, sometimes to the world. When you maintain control, you communicate strength and confidence. You demonstrate that your self-worth is determined internally, you are, not by external approval or external attacks. Emotional discipline empowers you to act according to your values rather than reacting according to the whims of others, you are. It gives you the freedom to choose your life rather than surrendering it to circumstances beyond your control. Finally, you are. Cultivating emotional discipline is not a one-time achievement. It is a lifelong practice. It requires constant attention, reflection, and effort. You are. It demands honesty with yourself about your weaknesses, your triggers, and your unexamined assumptions. It asks you to confront discomfort rather than flee from it. You are. To embrace responsibility rather than shirk it, and to prioritize long-term stability over short-term gratification. But the reward is unmatched. You are a life in which your decisions, your actions, and your emotional state are governed by your own hand rather than the chaos of the external world. You are. Emotional discipline is strength because it converts vulnerability into power, chaos into clarity, and reaction into deliberate action. You are. It is the armor of the serious individual, the shield that protects against manipulation, provocation, and self-doubt. It allows you to navigate life with precision. You are. Resilience and dignity. The emotionally disciplined person does not merely survive, they thrive, unshaken by the storms around them, unbothered by the folly of others. You are, and unwavering in pursuit of their purpose. To cultivate emotional discipline is to cultivate mastery over yourself. You are. And mastery over yourself is the truest measure of strength. Meaning grows where reaction dies. Most people live their lives in constant reaction. You are. A word spoken carelessly, an action taken without thought, or an event outside their control sparks immediate emotion, anger, fear, resentment, or frustration. You are. They respond first, think later, if at all. This is the default human condition, but it is also the breeding ground for chaos, dissatisfaction, and wasted energy. You are. To live reactively is to surrender your life to circumstance, to allow every minor disruption to dictate your mood, your energy, and ultimately your direction. Meaning, you are. Real and lasting meaning cannot flourish in such an environment. Meaning arises only when reaction dies, when the reflexive, impulsive you are and unexamined responses are replaced with reflection, deliberation, and conscious choice. Reaction is the mind's shortcut. It is easy, immediate, and instinctual. You are, but ease comes at a cost. Reaction bypasses judgment, bypasses responsibility, and bypasses growth. It gives power to the world outside, letting others' words, actions, you are, and errors invade your internal landscape. When someone insults you, when circumstances disappoint you, when life is unfair, you are. A reactive person reacts first and suffers later. Their energy, attention, you are, and time are consumed by the consequences of impulses rather than being invested in building what truly matters. In this constant back and forth, you are. Life feels like an endless struggle and meaning remains elusive. When reaction dies, however, something remarkable occurs. A pause, a moment of awareness. You are. A conscious choice. These are not signs of weakness or hesitation. They are the birthplaces of control, insight, and purpose. You are. By stepping back from the immediate emotional response, you create space to assess, to evaluate, and to decide how best to act. This pause is not passive. You are. It is active mastery. It is the recognition that your energy is precious, your attention is finite, and your life is your responsibility. In the absence of reaction, you are. Meaning is no longer buried beneath layers of chaos. It rises to the surface and becomes the organizing principle of your life. You are. Consider how reactive behavior shapes relationships. People who react to every slight, insult, or disagreement are constantly caught in conflict. You are. They feed into cycles of resentment, misunderstanding, and distraction. Their relationships are turbulent, their connections shallow, and their influence limited. You are. But when reaction dies, interaction transforms. You respond with clarity rather than defensiveness, with reason rather than emotion. You are. With perspective rather than impulse. Others are not manipulated by your moods, and you are not manipulated by theirs. Your presence becomes stable, reliable. You are. And commanding. Meaning grows not only within you, but also radiates outward, shaping the quality of every interaction and deepening the impact you have on the world. You are. Reaction is also the enemy of progress. A reactive mind is a distracted mind. Every irritation, every slight, you are. Every frustration pulls attention from the goals that matter, from the work that builds competence, from the actions that create purpose. You are. Life becomes a series of small battles with insignificant issues, leaving the broader mission unfulfilled. But when reaction dies, focus emerges. You are. You are no longer a slave to external stimuli. You can commit fully to long-term objectives, endure setbacks without despair. You are, and invest energy where it creates lasting value. The moments that once caused anger or frustration now become opportunities for learning, adjustment, you are, and forward movement. Meaning accumulates quietly but powerfully in the spaces where reaction no longer reigns. Furthermore, you are. The death of reaction is the death of chaos within. Chaos thrives in impulsivity. It feeds on fear, irritation, and emotional volatility. You are. But when you cultivate stillness, patience, and deliberate choice, you starve chaos of its fuel. Your mind becomes ordered, your intentions clear. You are. And your life aligned with principles rather than whims. Meaning requires order. It cannot take root in turmoil. You are. Every thought action guided by conscious decision rather than reflexive emotion strengthens the soil where purpose grows. Reaction may feel urgent, emotional, you are, or justified, but it is sterile. Only through measured response, reflection, and awareness can you cultivate a life of depth, impact, and significance. You are. It is also important to recognize that reaction often confuses short-term satisfaction with long-term value. Anger, injustice, resentment toward a competitor, you are. Irritation at minor inconveniences. They may feel potent in the moment, but they rarely produce anything meaningful. Meaning requires patience, perspective, you are, and endurance. It requires looking beyond immediate stimuli to the larger picture of your life and your responsibilities. When reaction dies, you are. You can discern what truly matters from what merely agitates. You choose your battles, prioritize your energy, and invest in endeavors that have lasting significance. You are. Finally, meaning grows where reaction dies, because only then can you confront life with full responsibility. Responsibility demands attention, courage, and clarity. You are. It requires that you meet each situation not with reflexive emotion, but with conscious action. To act responsibly, you must first stop reacting. You are. You must observe yourself, assess the situation, and decide deliberately what is appropriate. Meaning, purpose, you are, and fulfillment are the natural byproducts of a life conducted in this manner. The reactive individual drifts, the disciplined, reflective individual navigates. You are. They chart a course with intention, resilience, and wisdom, and the life they build is coherent, rich, and deeply significant. In short, you are. Reaction is the enemy of meaning because it surrenders your life to forces you cannot control. Emotional reflexes scatter energy, disrupt focus, and distort perception. You are. The death of reaction, however, is the birth of mastery. It allows you to reclaim your attention, govern your responses, and invest in what truly matters. You are. It transforms chaos into clarity, impulse into action, and distraction into purpose. Meaning does not arrive in the loudness of emotion. You are. It grows quietly in the stillness of deliberate choice. And those who cultivate this stillness discover a life far richer, more resilient. You are more powerful than any momentary gratification could provide.